Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about Oblivion's movie Set Explained, because this movie, even though did not become a very big box office hit, it started a trend which became a very big trend in future. So we have to understand this core aspect here. So core aspect is effort, meaning if you are not putting effort into your movie, audience can smell it. For example, the effort that was put into Lord of the Rings versus the effort that was put into Hobbit, people can smell it. It's like they cannot put their finger on it. It's like, oh, I think ambient occlusion was weak, or this was not rendered properly, or that. It's not like that, but they can feel it. For example, if I showed you original Pacific Rim versus the part 2 of Pacific Rim, you will be like, original one, like, that was masterpiece. Again, not a great work of art, but damn good movie. So people can smell it, and you have to understand this. Yes, theaters are not becoming as popular as they used to be, and again, inherently they are dying. But reality is still, it's a big ass screen, meaning the screen is so wide, so big. It's not measured in inches, it was measured in meters. For example, you can literally have screens that are 30 meters across. Let that sink in. So these things are huge, meaning if you're not truly utilizing it, if you're still looking from a perspective of a TV director or things of that nature, it will show up much easily in a large screen. Whereas, like, dude, you did not put so much effort into the shot. Like, there is a reason why cinema takes that kind of money. The primary reason for that is like every minute detail, which you may think, oh, that's only taking such a small scene in my camera sensor. It's like, how big it's gonna be. Like, by the time you put it in a large screen, it's huge. For example, eyes. Your eyes, literally, if you're zooming in the eyes, your eyes could literally be this wide. So you have to understand everything that is reflecting in the eyes have to be well thought out. So this creates a very serious issue, that if director, basically everybody who's working in the movie is not putting their best foot forward, people can feel it. It's like you're putting, like, lazy work. Like, and the moment that feeling comes in, it may not be obvious to your consciousness, but to your subconsciousness, like, it will feel like a waste of time. You can tell, we can almost smell, hey, the director or whoever worked on it, they put their effort into it. If they're not, you will feel it. I guarantee you will feel it. And why do you want to put so much effort into it? One simple reason: it allows you to suspend disbelief. Meaning, if you built a good set, like for example 2001 Space Odyssey, they did not need to do this. Like, there was no actual reason to do like a freaking rotating spin drum. Like, they actually built a quote-unquote centrifuge to shoot this scene. There was no need for it, but they did it anyway. And benefit was, this scene is still iconic. It was shot years ago, decades ago, and it still holds up. That's the whole point. Suspension of disbelief is almost like a trading, meaning you sell first them a very little thing. For example, Lord of the Rings starts, it does not go all out in the first scene. It sells you very little by little, and it earns your trust, and it keeps you're like, hey, push your disbelief a bit further, then push it a bit further. Then over time, once you have earned enough trust, people like shut off their brain, just enjoy the show. And in that way, you can create a lame movie that's not like, very like this movie Oblivion, but it could still become enjoyable. People will be like, you know what, I enjoy it. Like, flat out, realistically speaking, neither the Titanic nor the Avatar are deep, cultural, impactful movies, but all of them made boatload of money and people enjoyed them in droves. So why? Effort was too goddamn high. So what exactly was the needed in this movie that they created this sort of statement? Well, the need was, they wanted a futuristic habitat. Now, you have to understand, you have infinite possibilities. The moment you start to nail it down, you start to shrink your possibilities. Like, okay, I have this much possibility. What can you, no, okay, you need this. Okay, now it shrinks it down. With this, now it shrinks it down even further. So they had two counter goals. Counter goal number one, futuristic habitat. What does future mean? Future simply means things that are integrated. Okay, that's good. Futuristic means things have curves. That's what we always assume with the future. It's like things will have curves. And you can see that in Iron Man. Basically, Iron Man early armors were always very symmetrical, very geometric, very hard edges. And then as he progressed further, his armor became more and more smooth. And you can see that in cars also. The cars used to be very boxy, and then it became very smooth. Curves are the future. Then high altitude. So these are the two things. So, okay, you got curves, and then you got high altitude. How the heck you show high altitude? Okay, you show clouds. That's the easiest way to show altitude. Okay, awesome, good. But how do you convey it? Well, you have windows and show the cloud that are below. Okay, what do we hate in aircraft right now? Tiny windows. Windows are tiny. How do you show a futuristic aircraft? You have the same goddamn thing, but huge ass window. So those two things combined, curves and huge ass window, created this concept art. Of course, this is almost final concept art, and then they've flushed it out of further. But they must have started with hundreds of concept art. It does take time. Used to work in a game industry, so I understand like this sort of hundreds of concept we have to throw out. Then only this, I think this nails down what you want. So they had futuristic habitat with high altitude, which meant huge windows with curves. Now you have to understand this. Windows, mirrors are one of those things that generally it's easier to just not put them in the scene. For example, if you are shooting a scene where a person has a visor on and visor is curved, generally how they will shoot it, they will take a visor on, remove the character inside and just take a plate shot. Basically they're like, okay, how the heck visor is supposed to look? Okay, now throw the scene away, then put the character inside and then just act without it, and in post-production put the visor in, because it's so goddamn difficult. Like mirror, difficult. Curved mirrors, go away. Like at that point in time, anytime you're seeing in a VFX shot that are like, unless they are very particular, very lucky, very precisely designed something, most of the time they're like, dude, I'm not gonna shoot with mirrors or windows. It's just gonna be like a blank shoot. Then in post-production, they layer it on. So they wanted this effect, huge windows, and they wanted clouds that are below them. That's how you convey altitude. So that required a lot of window space. Consequence, there is no way they can key it out, because you have to understand, green screen is one of those things that are overused by amateur directors and people who lost their sense of art. Because you have to understand, if you have green screen back behind you, it's kind of okay to key it out. But if you do not have isolation between the green screen and the character, it's very difficult. For example, why the heck DC movies feels lame? Basically, it does not feel it always feels like, because here's the, for example, in Superman, Zod was walking down our ship. If Marvel was doing it, Marvel will have at least anything that character is directly touching. Marvel does their best to put actual stuff there. For example, even in Infinity War, Endgame and all that jazz, they built whole sets and then the person was acting in it. Of course, extension of the set, that could be green screen, nobody cares about it. That's awesome. Because again, if green screen far away from you, awesome, you can shoot it. But if you have something this open and you put a green screen all around it and you have mirrors, it's going to reflect inside and the whole person will be cast in a green glow that you will not be able to remove. Even if you are shooting footage in 12-bit or 14-bit or 16-bit raw, you will not be able to remove it because it's fundamentally casted on the character and their eyes. So you can't remove it flat out. That created that issue. And it's a hero location, meaning it's not something that, let's say you brute forced it. Let's say you are like, hey, I'm just going to make whole scene into 3D and just make a 3D mock-up of the character, which they did in Avenger, where they did not had a proper plate of Captain America. So they're like, okay, let's just 3D Captain America there. So Captain America, even though the plate was shot, it did not sync up properly. So they just wiped him out, created a whole 3D scene. Again, that has been done. But this scene was hero location, meaning many times the character is going to be here, interacting here. So that was not feasible. So fundamentally, and they understood this one core asset. Not everything can be fixed in post-production. That is core aspect that many low-level, basically low artistry directors forget. It's like, many times you will see the scene, it's like, bro, this scene should have been thrown out. The take should have been thrown out. It's like, bro, no. Again, in stunt, in actions, those are different things. But you're like, sometimes you're like, dude, it's not a good take. For example, in modern Marvel movies, it's just garbage. For example, if I show you Iron Man 1 versus if I show you Black Widow, you're like, dude, how the heck this scene was accepted in Black Widow? Or like in Matrix current fourth part, it's like, dude, it's just bad. Like they have bad. So you have to understand, you cannot fix everything in post. You have to think about it. So how did they solve this problem? Well, they built full-scale mockup. I have provided the video down below. Now, full-scale mockup simply gives actors a lot of advantage, meaning actor can just react to it. Meaning if they are walking, they are walking. They are not running on a treadmill. They are walking. So that creates a very good sense of scope. It's like, hey, I'm moving. I'm going from point A to point B. This is a big room. It feels like a big room because you can walk in a bigger room. So they created full-scale. Again, it was like almost 3-story structure. So big boy. And it was awesome for actors, but they had to create a shot around it, basically what they're going to project around it or basically in front of it. So they needed 360 plate for mountain tops. So they did this. Now this was another aspect. How do you convey that like this structure is top? You make sure the cloud is on bottom, but here's the deal, not every mountaintop has that. You have to find specific mountaintops that have clouds most of the time going below them. And again, that also gives you another advantage. For example, there are some mountaintops, the cloud is like creates a haze around it. It does not have that like this sort of clean clouds below me attitude. So those sort of time you may like, hey, let take a shot of that plate, and that could create a, like, you know, ambient atmosphere where, like, after a nuke went off and then it's like everything is cloudy and hazy, you can show that. So they shot the plates on top of mountain, and they did multiple morning, multiple evenings, multiple night, multiple daytimes. That's how they created a template, a library, which they could use to project. And it was front projector. Front projector simply meaning how you do theater. Sometimes back projection is used, generally because back projection is preferred, because if you have a screen and things are projected in the back, it's completely independent, it's clean, it's completely. But if you have set here and you're trying to project, you can create a scenario where you have too much what we call haze, because again, you have like large projector lamps, they are very bright, so they can create a haze, and that can give an illusion that like things would look muddy. So the generally back is preferred, but because of the technological development, or what we call ultra short throw, that haze can be controlled. So you will have screen, put the projector as close to it as possible, so haze does not capture in get captured into the basically camera, and then you are like, you shoot it, and it was done. So they basically shot the plate, created a set, and then this was done. So this scene that you see around here now is that whole thing. You may think like, hey, black bars, here's the deal. They designed it properly, meaning now back in the old days, director used to do this is like, so they were you know, analyzing how big the frame should be. Nowadays you will see them using a monocular, where they will have exact lens they will use in the basically camera. That gives them ideas like how wide I need to be. Again, you can make it as wide as possible, but that would be expensive. So you want to be as big as possible, little bit of buffer, and that's it. Overspending is not a wise idea. So this, while though you're looking from a second party point of view, so it does look, hey, there is a, like, you know, gap, but you look from the camera, see, every window is awesome. I'm pretty sure the most expensive part in this structure would be curved glasses. Those huge curved glasses, think of it this way, like that's how they designed it properly, so that scope of the viewing is limited and the screen is bigger than that. And this sort of reflection, yeah, not happening. No amount of CG rendering can do that. Like the best way to achieve that in CG would just make a CG 3D rendered person. Otherwise you cannot do that. And again, at that point in time, you might do motion capture and all that jazz. So they did it in basically special effect, not in VFX. Special effect is anything that happens in front of camera. VFX happens after you have shot scene. And this gives them flexibility, meaning even in the scene, you can see, hey, afternoon, daytime, cloud system. And this was another aspect. They had moon that went boom. Now that does not look good. Again, that was the weakest part of the series. Like moon went boom, and it's like, dude, why the heck it looks like it went to boom a few seconds ago? In story, it did not make sense. It was like either Earth will have a ring, or like it did not follow well, but it did not take you out of the story. Why? Because they baked it into the plates, and plates captured by the camera is always out of focus. So consequence, it was like, it's just a thing that's there. You are focusing on the character. It's just a thing that moon went boom. It's like, okay, you can suspend your disbelief. So it was very awesome. It allowed them a lot of mood changes, meaning the same scene they could shoot in multiple lightings. For example, they're like, hey, this dramatic scene, like they want to show, for example, this scene they're gonna show, this character is like watching the sunset kind of scenario. It's like, hey, I think this sunset time is a bit too you know, bright. How about we tone it down? So they will use template timeline, and it's like, hey, instead of 4, let's use 5 p.m. These can be done. So that's why this idea like literally blew up in time. Like they built a whole set and the whole system, and this whole thing was just like take it and go. They can do multiple retakes, no rendering. It will go to the editors. All editors will do is color correction and trim it, add sound obviously, and done. So this was mind-blowing when they did it. This was like really good, and I guarantee you the results of this puppy was that when this was done, if you have watched Oblivion movie, no matter what happens, whenever you are in the sky tower, you will never doubt it that you are in the sky tower. It's like, it's one of those things like, I'm looking at 3D movie, or I am in a movie that is 3D. You always want that I am in a movie, it is 3D also, because that means your eye is not fighting you. So it just feels, and it created a new toolkit that's like, hey, instead of just having green, why don't we use things? So it allowed many production to improve, many. For example, there's this one TV show which I really like, that is Dharmakshetra. It is like basically our old mythological story where you have like two sides fighting each other, huge battle takes over, and then before they pass on to the next life, they have to be judged. And this is the whole scenario. Now this is between heaven and hell, so it is on top of a mountain. That's how story describes it. Now problem is that background, they just painted it. Like this is a painted wall. It does not feel dynamic. So they do have enough understanding that how do you show time is passing, because this is supposed to happen from daylight to evening light, so around 4 to 5 hours. So they move the spotlight, that creates that, move that hot spot, and it does give you a feeling of early morning, late afternoon, evening. So it does convey that, but because the background is static, it does not feel good. And again, removing all that in CG would be too difficult. But if they had used the front projection 360 system, it would have looked amazing. And it does not need to be like that 32K kind of footage. It does not need to be that expensive. It just needs to be better than nothing, better than a static system, which they could have achieved. So I really, really wish they have done that, because this is a good TV show. And this is like around 12 episodes, and majority of the scenes have this. So removing them in like post would not have been viable. Making sure a good set is built, that would have been far more desirable. Okay, this is one of those things. It's like, it's not expensive, too expensive comparatively, but you can get amazing result. And then effort in set. If you put effort in the set, outcome is quality in the quality and feel in the movie. For example, this is a South Indian movie. It has fighter jet, and again, you look at the dude, the eyes are dead. And be mindful, this was a theater release, meaning you can literally watch a giant dude with black eyes. It's like, no. If you are in a fighter jet, I need to see your eyes, and I need to see reflections of things that are around you. It's desirable. They spend a lot of time to make sure that always happens. But it's not happening. And again, the people are in the cockpits, it always looks fake. Why? I guarantee you there was no cockpit there. Or they may have built a cockpit and there was like, okay, cockpit is there, I'm just gonna remove that cockpit, shoot a blank cockpit, slide or plate, and then I'm gonna use it in VFX. So that's why, again, if they have built the whole jet there, not even jet, just the cockpit area, and had a video screen around it, the whole reflection would have made things exponentially far more believable, exponentially so. Of course, it will not look as good as Top Gun, which I watched recently and I was like, damn. But I get it, it would have looked much better. So, and this was another scene that in Terminator, which I did not think, that's the whole point of suspense and disbelief. Engineer, architect, or things of those nature, basically people who are working in the tradesmen of the craft, they can look at it and say, hey dude, that's a plate. I did not notice it was a plate. When I saw this image, I was like, are you kidding me? Because be mindful, this is Terminator 2. In Terminator 1, Arnold Schwarzenegger was doing majority of his stunt, and it was like dangerous. The behind the scenes on that, dude, you are dangerous. But I'm pretty sure they were like, dude, we have a child, so let's pump the brake. So the original idea was like, they're gonna have the truck, they're gonna have a low riding trailer, and the things will happen on the trailer. But again, I'm pretty sure they were like, dude, we have a kid now, we're gonna be careful here. So this was back projected, and then they had this scene, and it was so amazing. Like, I guarantee you, majority of you people did not thought that was the thing, because again, that shot was a practical shot. They composited it practically, so there is no green screen, there is no edge blurring and all that. It just looks good. Suspension of disbelief achieved. So that's the whole aspect of it. Achieving this sort of projections, it's just like, oh, back in the days we did not have green screen, so we said, no, green screen is the last resort. Like, if you cannot do anything about it, yeah, go green screen. But if you can do anything about it, don't use green screen. Thus shall say no to green screen. So again, if you like this sort of video, I'll make more videos about it. So this was my presentation on Oblivion set design. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment, because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.